guys, how are you? So that was Lancaster, Pennsylvania last night where rioting ensued. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I also have a really cool open letter. It's a nationwide open letter to elected officials from the NYC Sergeants Benevolent Association. I think you'll find it really interesting. And then I have a really cool story out of Santa Monica, California, and Santa Monica is my neighbor. I didn't even know this happened. I randomly found this little article. I haven't seen this anywhere in mainstream news, but it just goes to show what happens when the community works with police officers, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. I'll also link to it in the description below. I highly encourage you to read the whole story. It was very cool. But first, let's talk about what happened in Lancaster. So over the weekend, a black man was shot by police officers. His name was Ricardo Nunez. He was 27 years old. And the news came out that a man was shot by police officers. And right in the wake of this, before we had all the information, rioting, protesting, all of that, what you saw last night just ensued through Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And Lancaster, I don't know if you know, but I have family in Pennsylvania. I've driven through Lancaster County many of times. A lot of Lancaster County is Amish country. It's where a lot of Amish people live. I actually didn't even know they had a downtown. I had only seen the country parts. I mean, when you drive through, it's horse and buggy. So the fact that this is happening in Lancaster is crazy to me. It can happen anywhere. But so Ricardo Nunez was 27 years old. Police were called for a domestic disturbance. And when the body cam footage was released, which thankfully they did this right away, you can clearly see that this was completely justified. So the officer knocks on the door where the domestic disturbance has been called in. And keep in mind that this man, Ricardo Nunez, has 4 counts of aggravated assault already on his record of stabbing. He stabbed a 16-year-old, a 22-year-old, and 2 26-year-olds. So police responded to the domestic disturbance called. And as soon as the door was open, you see a person come outside, and then Ricardo runs out of the residence with a knife in hand, charging at the police officer. The police officer runs away. He can't run away fast enough, so he has no choice other than to turn around and shoot the man. And unfortunately, tragically, it resulted in the death of this man, which I don't like to see in any sense of the way. I don't want this to happen. I want people to comply with police officers and for none of this to happen. But again, the shooting, in my opinion, and I'm sure in most people's opinions, was completely justified. Here is a still from the body cam footage. I'm not going to show it because it's pretty disturbing, but you can see in this still, the man is running, holding a knife. The knife looks like the size of my forearm. This is a giant knife. And if police can't even defend themselves for this, I don't know what to do. Are they just supposed to lay down and sacrifice themselves? Are they not supposed to defend themselves at all? And then who in their right mind is going to want to become a police officer when you can't even, this was clearly self-defense. You can't even defend yourself anymore. And then rioting ensued in Lancaster. Fires were started. The police building had a lot of damage to it. Arrests were made, disturbances, all kinds of stuff. And as you saw in the video I just showed you, these people are completely unhinged and angry. And we even saw this happen in Chicago a few weeks ago. There was the story of police officers were approaching a man who was wanted for murder, and as they were coming towards the man, and you can clearly see it on video, puts a gun in his mouth and kills himself. And because of this, before people had any information, Chicago saw one of its worst nights of rioting and looting, because they heard that there was a shooting involved with police officers, and they automatically assumed that police shot the individual. That's not what happened. We had the video evidence. The individual shot himself before police even had the opportunity to approach him. And this just goes to show these individuals do not care about the truth. They do not care about justice. They want to break things. They want to loot and they want to riot and they want to break. And this is also why I'm a fan of mosh pits. Let people have their mosh pits so they can get their crazies out. But that being said, that's what happened in Lancaster. Unfortunately, I want to read you this story now. I'll post it right, or it's not a story, I'm sorry. I want to read you this open letter now, because what is being said in this letter, the demonization, and we've talked about this, I just feel like I'm repeating myself over and over again, the repeated demonization of police officers by elected officials and by the media is causing people to now not even care about the truth. It's emboldening this riotous behavior because now they feel justified in their unjustified anger, and it's being fueled by our politicians and being fueled by the media. So I'm going to read you this letter right now. If I can post it right here, I will. This came out today. This is an open letter to all nationwide elected officials from the NYC Sergeants Benevolent Association. Dear elected officials, as the president of the 13,000-member NYC Sergeants Benevolent Association, I am aghast at the unbridled violence plaguing our nation. It continued unabated this weekend with the attempted assassination of 2 police officers in Los Angeles. As they were battling for their lives, scores of protesters descended on the hospital, blocked entrances, and chanted that the officers should die. Despite the barbarism of these actions, there was no public story from elected officials. I realize we are living in a time of dueling political ideologies, but common decency would suggest that elected officials take a stand on such crimes against humanity. Instead, they are still pandering to any mobs masquerading as peaceful protesters and causing physical harm and mayhem in cities throughout the country. By any standard, what happened in Los Angeles constitutes terrorism, and the American people deserve to know if elected officials, regardless of their party affiliation, stand with the angry mobs or with law enforcement who are perilously on their own in this battle against American ideals. I urge all law enforcement organizations across the country to take their purported leaders to task for being unwilling or unable to lead during these tumultuous times. We need to know who is with us, who is against us, and who is spinelessly sitting on the fence to see which way the political winds are blowing. The stakes are high because lawlessness breeds anarchy and lack of leadership brings chaos and pandemonium, as we see happening. The police serve as the first line of defense against such disorder, but have been vilified, pillared, and denigrated for the sake of political expediency. We cannot effectively do our jobs in this climate of hate where politicians vote to defund and devalue us, only then to turn around and blame us for spikes in crime. We live in a complex world, but we expect our elected officials to navigate us through difficult times, not propel fear, hate, and dissension in order to promote their own radicalized agendas. We urge all law enforcement organizations to call out their elected officials and demand a response to the unyielding violence, as well as acts of domestic terrorism that took place in Los Angeles. The American public deserves to know unequivocally who represents them. They deserve nothing less. And the interesting thing, too, if you look at polls from the general public, you wouldn't think this from watching the media or from what some of the, like Ted Wheeler, for example, Eric Garcetti, my mayor, Ted Wheeler's the mayor of Portland, or Bill de Blasio, the mayor of Atlanta. You would never know by listening to them, but it's something around 80% of Americans like police, and we think there should be more police officers. So the sentiment behind a lot of these politicians does not accurately affect the constituents in their districts, which I find pretty interesting and quite concerning. So I don't know exactly who they think they're pandering to. They're pandering to this small mob of violent and unhinged individuals. Did that video I showed you look like people that care about justice? No, they look unhinged. So now we're going to segue into a nice story, because I want to show you exactly what can happen when the community and police work together to keep their community safe, because you can do this. You can work with police officers, and police officers are not bad. They're there to protect you and your business and your home and your livelihood. They're making it safe so that you can pursue the American dream. Okay, so this story came out September 4th. And I randomly found somebody tweeted this on Twitter. And so this came out of Santa Monica, California, and I want to read a little bit for you. But again, it's linked below. I highly encourage you to find it on your own or to read it on your own if you can. So in Santa Monica, or in Los Angeles, a few weeks ago, there was another shooting of a black man, and this caused a lot of protests and rioting in South LA. And there was a particular Tuesday night where a member of the community randomly saw on an individual's Instagram story just one line, and it said, "Looting in Santa Monica, 7 p.m." from an Instagram story. So this person tipped off police. Around 6 p.m., police officers who were monitoring the highway around Santa Monica started noticing carloads of people in rented vehicles that were going towards Santa Monica. Now, this is sort of normal for a Friday or Saturday night in Santa Monica, but mind you, this was a Tuesday night, and we're in the middle of a pandemic where basically everything is closed. This is LA County. We're still very much shut down. I've told you that before. So they started noticing these carloads of people in rented vehicles all coming at the same time down the highway, exactly at the time that all the looting was supposed to ensue, according to the Instagram story. And this Instagram story was an individual who had thousands of followers. So police put a drone out to monitor the cars, and sure enough, it was happening as was expected. They were coming towards downtown. So police just went downtown. They called in police from other districts, and they completely saturated the downtown area just with a heavy police presence. And the cars that were coming off the highway, they started pulling over for minor traffic stops just to show their presence. And lo and behold, the cars turned around and left, and there was no looting. If you want to read the whole story, again, it's down there, but it's just one of those stories that goes to show, I thought that was pretty cool, that when people work with the community, you can keep it safe. Businesses weren't looted, things weren't busted, and everyone ended up safe. No one was hurt. The people just turned around and went home. So I'm just a firm believer that law enforcement, it works. But when we're continually demonizing people and having people not to trust them, it's not going to work. And we're unintendedly encouraging people to further resist the police, which causes more violence and more damage to our communities. That's all I have on this. Let me guys know what you think about, especially about the story in Santa Monica. I just thought that was pretty cool. But I encourage you to read the whole thing. There's a lot more information in the actual story. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye.